Welcome to another episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 153. Our debut episode of 2017. What's going on? What's going on? I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gail Falkenthal of Communities Digital News. Joining us live from the UK, EJ Boxing Live. Uh, Daniel Carpio of The Inscriber. Jacob Rivera, Jab Hook Boxing. What's going on, ladies and gents?
Happy New
New
Year, my
Year,
friends.
happy boxing year.
Indeed. For those who are new to the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Pound for Pound Boxing Report is a live YouTube show / podcast as well as blog talking all things boxing. The model is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line, if it concerns boxing, we will talk about it. If you want to find all things about Pound for Pound Boxing Report, all information about the P4P Boxing Report, one main place you want to go to, that's the blog page, P4P Boxing Report.wordpress.com is the link. Check to the right of the page. You will find links to find our pages on Facebook, G Plus, and Tumblr, as well as links to where to listen to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, as well as Player.fm. Let's get this show started tonight. Starting 2017 by going back to 2016, as everybody knows, particularly hardcore heads. At the very close of the year, there are big boxing cards in Japan to close out the year. Multiple title fights all over the country of Japan. I want to focus on some bouts there. Start off with Naoya Inoue, who defended his belt for, I want to say, the third time. Against former champion Kohei Kono. Inoue scoring a 6-round stoppage. Starting with you, Gail, we did some tweeting back and forth about this bout. What I liked about Inoue, look, Kono's a tough guy, and you can follow up EJ. Kono's a tough guy. He's a bit old, but still, he's a former world champion. And what I liked from Inoue was the maturity level that he showed. He methodically broke him down, dissected him before he finished him off, essentially with the left hook and then follow-up combination. I look at this bout. I first of all discuss this bout. I'll break down the bout, and you can follow up, EJ. But for me, what I like, to me, it says that Inoue is improving, A, and B, it's time for him to really step up to the big time. As we all know, there's a lot of talent now at 115 pounds, and we will talk about it in a bit. But first of all, Gail, and then you can follow up, EJ, your assessment of Inoue's performance over Kono.
If anyone doubted that Inoue had the goods, they shouldn't doubt it after having seen this fight. He is improving. That should scare everyone within a few pounds of this weight division, no question at all. He showed not only the skills we know him to have, but we are also seeing him think more in the ring, showing patience, being willing to, put those body punches into the bank in those early rounds before he starts headhunting a little bit. And his ring generalship's getting better as he matures, which is an amazing thing to say for a fighter this young with this few fights under his belt. Some of it's skill, some of it's instinct, some of it's what he's learning. He's got it all. And yeah, it's time for him to move out of Japan. And we've seen him making the rounds, being visible ringside at some other big fights, looking on. He started to get introduced, particularly by the HBO commentators who were, seeing him down the road as a foe for Roman Gonzalez. And I, for one, can't wait. But after seeing him, I thought, damn, I'm not sure Chocolatito really wants to take him on right now when he's still fairly new to the 115-pound division. I think he needs a few more fights. I really do. I was so impressed with the body work to start the fight. It was inevitable that we were going to see that all pay off, with the knockout later. And Kono proved to be a really perfect opponent for Inoue at this point of his career because he's not going to lay down. He's going to make him work hard for it. He put on, very good defense, tagged him a few times. It showed that Inoue has a good chin too. Really, really one of those crossroads fights that we're going to look back on and say that is the moment where he turned the corner from good to great.
I'm going to you, EJ, and then you can follow up Gus and Daniel. Gus from Corruption and Boxing has joined us. EJ, we've done some English commentary uh, of Inoue's fight. What impressed you about his win over Kono?
Yeah, man, he did like it was a good, impressive win. You know, Kono. You already know. Me and Nat done the commentary on it. Did I do, actually, I've uploaded it. Actually, I did the audio. You know, Kono, you already know about him. He brings it every single time. You know, he's got that kamikaze style. You have to kill him to win. And I knew he just dissected him and just took him out of there, man. And it was impressive, man. It was impressive because you expected the fight, and he's good at that. He's solid at that weight class as well. And I didn't think it would. I didn't think actually, you know, I didn't think it was gonna happen like that, man. I thought Kono would at least push him later rounds, and he just took him out, man. Dissected him, took him apart, man. So it was impressive by Inoue, and I hope to see much more of better name opponents in the division. I mean, that's a very good name to start with. He's big in Japan, so you kind of take his audience. I think Kono maybe thinks about retirement. He's been a good long patriot for Japanese boxing, so he done a really good job in his career. But I think it's time for him to step down. I think Inoue needs more opponents, man. Maybe a US debut, or if not, we bring some of the other big names to Japan and we get some fights. But I just need more activity. Obviously, you know, it's hand injury, but it was a very impressive win by Inoue. So I look forward to seeing them fight. Big competition. I don't think he was hurt at all in the competition. A good way to celebrate New Year's. So we're looking for a fight maybe March, April, and onwards, man. So that's all I care about, man. Just these guys active and fighting the big names in the division, because there's very good names in the division, you know. So very good performance.
Gus and Daniel, your thoughts on Inoue's stoppage win over Kohei Kono?
Hey, Mike. Happy New Year to everybody else.
Same to you, Gus. Same to you.
Yeah, fantastic win, Mike. We know Kohei Kono has been a great super flyweight 115. He's held the belt, the WBA, the WBO. You know, he's a who's he. He's actually fought in the division. You know, the likes of Koki Kamado, he fought in the States, Liborius, Solis. So he's fought very good opposition. But what's stood out is his durability. You know, he's never been stopped. Okay, you can argue that in his big time fights that he's come out second best. But he's always put on, you know, competitive fights. But Inoue becomes, you know, the first man to stop him, and you know, the way the stoppage sort of came about in the round was a bit of a surprise to me. Kono, as we expected, came out almost, you know, almost like almost a little bit like, you know, Del Boy Chisora, Mike, when he came out against Dillian White, or even who was that Argentinian who fought Floyd Mayweather when he just came out winging punches? Maidana. Almost like him. Yeah. You know, just try to rush him, which I think was a good strategy. You know, try and catch him off guard. Don't let him settle. You know, throw punches from, you know, crazy angles as Kono does. You know, was having a good bit of success. But Inoue, you know, he's like water, as Bruce Lee said. He just changes his defense and his offense and his stance. He goes from that Philly shuffle, shoulder roll to the high guard. So he's almost doing a little bit of trial and error to see what works, and he almost takes that risk. So on the inside, when Kono was winging them punches, looping it over, almost catching him on the sort of equilibrium temple shots, Inoue was patient, but you could just see him working the body, left hook to the body, left hook to the body, stepping out, turning to the right, coming back, left hook to the body. So he was just wearing him, and thinking, okay, all right, let's see what you got. See if you can keep that tempo up. Then eventually he resorted back to the high guard, implemented a bit of distance between the two, and then he just started, you know, catching his jab, firing the left hook, catching his jab, firing the right hand, you know, catch and shoot, pot shotting him, counter punching him from a distance. And so the rounds were quite strange, Mike. Kono was having the better, I'd say, the better sort of maybe 1.5 minutes, but Inoue would end the round the better. So Kono would almost go back to his corner, almost demoralized, thinking, "My God, I had a very good start." But he would go back to the corner thinking, "My God, I've just taken some huge shots," and you could see Inoue almost smiling at him.
And the thing was for me, Gus,
Yeah.
Inoue got hit with a couple of shots here and there, but I don't mind that because he's going to be in a position where his chin has to be tested, and the fact that he took shots and came right back, was unfazed by it. That's a step for me. That's a sign for me. I like that about it. He shouldn't do it in forward doing it. It shouldn't happen too much. But in this particular bout, given who he was fighting, I didn't mind that.
Yeah, and we saw it in his last fight as well. The way he changed from inside starting off, then he went mid distance, but then he ended up knocking out the guy from long range and pot shotting. He varies his game plan so much. He's got plan A, plan B, plan C, both defensively and offensively. And the way he stopped him as well was some, if I remember, I think it was some check left hook when Kono was trying to lunge in, coming with that left to the body. And Inoue just sort of, turned his shoulder, went almost to the back and side and just whipped that left hand. You'd think, how did he get, power from that sort of leverage where his feet didn't even look really planted? But, the kid's obviously got some mercury switches in his gloves.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, EJ, I think we did English commentary of his initial title defense against Pedraza, and I was saying then that, look, it wasn't even a flush shot that Inoue was landing against his Pedraza, I think his name was, his mandatory, and he was hurting him. So this dude, for his size, he has true power, one shot dynamite power.
Yeah, and in both hands, and he has that spite as well. You could see, he wants to almost take your head off at time when he's teeing off and when he's pot shotting. So, fantastic win, makes a huge statement, and let's hope we get those fights that we talked about at 115.
Daniel and Jacob, your thoughts on Inoue's stoppage win, excuse me.
Somewhere in New York City, Peter Nelson is smiling because that was a beautiful performance by Inoue. And to Gail's point, like, Kono was pretty much the best opponent you can get for him at this stage of his career. Somebody who is tough, somebody who up to that point was never knocked down, and one that could really test Inoue as far as tenacity. And that kid just passed with flying colors. The body, like I said, I'm a very big proponent, people know, of the body punch. And he invested in that very early, was able to get a stoppage of a man that's never been stopped before. And like, to Gus's credit, yeah, that kid has that killer instinct. Where if you know he knows he hurt you, he's gonna finish you. And that's very, very dangerous from anybody between 112 and 118. Because he's young enough where I could see him, even before he fights Chocolatito, probably move up to 118. But it was a great statement. It shows that when he comes here, because it's no longer an if, it's a when. When he comes here, that fight with him and Chocolatito, with him, Estrada, Cuadras, those are going to be the fights you want to see. And it's going to be, and make your HBO subscription worth it. Because for right now, they really haven't made it worth it. But very, very impressed by Inoue. Really, really good body punching. And I just can't wait to see him again.
Lastly, Jacob.
I think the thing with Inoue great win against a credible opponent, but unfortunately, Kono doesn't have the power, I think, to give Inoue any kind of hesitation. Because he did get tagged a little bit in that fight, but I think he felt his power and knew that he didn't really have a whole lot, so he was able to load up on his punches and really do some damage there. And it's impressive because like it's been said before, he hadn't been stopped before. And that first knockdown he got was pretty brutal. But I think with the likes of the fighters that Daniel just mentioned right now, Estrada, Quadros, and Gonzalez, they bring power with them. So it's going to be very interesting to see whether we know he can dish out the power, but whether he can actually take it from a power puncher. And these guys that are, they're not just one punch knockout artists, but they pour it on you, and the activity is high. So interested to see it. Part of me doesn't want to see him thrown into the deep waters yet. Like, I'd like to see him, I don't know, if we're going to get this Quadros Gonzalez rematch, then, I'd like to see him fight like maybe an Arroyo or maybe even an Estrada. And then, I don't know, winner gets the winner of Quadros Gonzalez if they end up making that rematch. But yeah, I mean, I'll be very interested to see if he, when he makes his stateside debut, and who it'll be against and where it'll be at. And hopefully he can bring in a new type of fan base to these lighter divisions that seem to be on fire, at least in my eyes lately, with the amount of competition and excitement that goes along with it.
Scorsese joined us on the show. I had to mute your mic because of the background noise. You can unmute your mic now. We're talking Naoya Inoue's win over Kono to close out the year, to close out 2016. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I checked them out, all the hype around it. My assessment was it wasn't no punch that I felt like I felt like he couldn't throw. It was not very much that I felt like he couldn't do. The opponent, I seen him on PBC before with I think the guys from Japan he was fighting, one of the Kameda brothers, I believe it was. High volume guy. I don't think they traded knockdowns in that fight, and he didn't look to have very much power in this one. That was shots. I see Inoue, I see the shoulder roll coming out of him, but I see it's like the first initial punch is the one that he can get away from, and the second one where the issue come. He'll turn the shoulder, but then turning it back the other way is the issue the issue I was seeing him have. And I was just trying to see the things at the lighter weights that I felt like wasn't at the higher weights, and I felt like I was seeing a lot of different things. This is once again a guy in Kono, I believe how you pronounce it. If you don't have power, you don't want to just be throwing extra shots. You want to learn some more skills. So, you turn into a Gradovich when you do that. You don't have power, but you feel like you can't do nothing else but let your hands go. You got to learn to do something else, head movement, control and pace and different things like that to get them guys different looks. So as far as Inoue, I'm impressed with what he did to the opponent, but overall, I just feel like, once again, there's so much at those lower weights that are missing that you see at other weights where people have really adjusted and not just, they're not just fighters, they're actual boxers, and just they do everything.
I tend to disagree with that, but we can move on. I just disagree. I think higher weight. What weight are we talking about here? First of all,
just seeing a plethora of different skills from.
I mean, what division are we talking about? You said
the one we were watching was 115, and I sort of feel like it's people that's not transcending the division and keeping them hot. Like when Pacquiao and them left 126, they went on to 130 and 126. I guess you could say it sort of died down, but then again, you have Russell now, you have Santa Cruz now, you have Frampton that's a boxer puncher, you have Lomachenko just left the division, Walters was there. It's so many styles in there. All those styles are different, and it's like every time I see these guys fighting somebody at 15 or 12, they're all kind of the same guy. I will admit, Quadras was the only one that kind of had his own little Sergio Martinez style. But then again, I always say it's either a guy coming forward and a guy moving a lot. With Inoue, I'll say he was in the pocket much more than the most. But, you know, he has more of a pro style to me compared to a lot of the guys down there. It's just certain things I felt like he could do better. Like when he's turning his shoulder, he could come and get the second and the third one because most of the time those were hitting him.
Okay. Daniel, Jacob, pondered about the future of Inoue. I'll just expand that to everybody here in the hangout in the panel, starting with you, EJ. The future for Inoue. I said when I first talked about it, it's time for him to make that move. Been rumored for a long time he's going to fight in the U.S. in 2017. As we all know, HBO has went out of their way to mention him every time Roman Gonzalez fights. There was pictures of them, Gonzalez and Inoue, after Chocolatito's last fight. The future of Inoue. I wouldn't mind seeing a tournament with him and Quadras and Estrada, Chocolatito. Throw them all in there in the ring together. I would love it. So the future for Naoya Inoue.
I already said already, like, you know, I said active and fighting more naming, man. Not more I can add on to that, man. That's what I got to say, man.
And okay, Gus, and then Yale.
Yeah, you're right, Mike. Throw in Cal, you fired Jerv in the cast, get a Super 6. You could rotate that shit all year round. Give me that and Sesame Street, and that's my TV for the whole year, man.
Gail, your thoughts?
Well, I think that Inoue can write his own ticket. Honestly, he's not the A side as far as HBO is concerned from a promotional standpoint just yet, because the American audience doesn't know him. But he's a big risk. He is a big risk for Chocolatito based on the performance we saw last weekend. You know, I think that they need to put him in some other kind of tune-up fight here. See how the audience reacts to him. Hell, I'd like to see him and Estrada do sort of a, you know, unofficial eliminator. I mean, it wouldn't be an ordered eliminator, but
That's
you know,
the fight.
kind of a HBO, you know, little mini tournament here. You know, let those two have at it, because they've talked up Estrada in the past. I think their casual audience would, you know, more or less know the legacy there and what we're talking about.
And Estrada is the guy who's being left out in all this. You saw the quadrants.
Absolutely, you know.
They're talking to Inoue, but Estrada's sitting there, had a pretty dominant reign at 112, is moving up to fight these guys, but nobody's mentioning him.
Well, and here that was the dream fight we would have all been talking about 12 months ago, you know, on this day last year. Now, yeah, it's all about Inoue because he's just come on so much. You know, he's such a performer. I do think the American audience will really like him. Let's have Inoue and Estrada go at it. The winner, you know, gets to take Roman on. Let's see. You know, the wild card I gotta mention, you know, about Roman too is, you know, his trainer recently died in kind of tragic circumstances, and you know, from what I know about him and having dealt with Roman, he's a very emotional guy. I'm wondering how much that's going to affect him. And, you know, it's still pretty recent. There's a lot of things in play here. There's just a lot of things in play. I'd like to see that eliminator first, or I think HBO is going to run into big trouble.
While I mentioned the Inoue bout first and recapping what went down in Japan, really the showcase bout of those entire 2 days and all those title fights was the rematch between Jezreel Corrales and Takashi Uchiyama. Their first fight early in 2016, early spring, I believe it was. Corrales upset Uchiyama, didn't just beat him, but took him apart. Uchiyama couldn't do anything with him that night, stopped him in 3. I'm going to you, Scorsese. The rematch took place, I want to say the 31st. Yeah, the 31st. Corrales won again by split decision. Your thoughts?
Corrales' performance was making you put him in dream fights. The way he's clean punches. Aqua style. I mean, the man uses footwork all around the ring, not in a fashion way he's running, but he's actually taking his lead foot, taking a step with it and bring it right back and just throwing you off. And next thing you know, he punching you again. He is nice with the footwork. I don't know how the card was close. I don't get it. I don't see it. The knockdown was fake. I think I got into the 9th round. And I didn't feel comfortable giving Uchiyama anything, and I had got busy and I didn't catch the last part. But I'll let somebody else tell me later if he happened to gas or something. But I wanted to watch and see if this was a fluke, see if he landed a good shot and Uchiyama couldn't take it the first time, and then he just did this again and got him out of there. But no, this is no fluke. This dude is boxing beautifully. He's switching stances over and over again. 6 times around. He's doing this maybe 6 times or maybe more, where he's just missing a shot, staying in the stance he was in, and comfortable. The clean left hands, the clean wide hooks. I mean, I don't feel like I've seen him doing very good inside work, but it's hard to get inside to do work on him, I guess. And to walk through those punches, I mean, that'd be the only riff I have. What is he like on the inside? Does it get a little sloppy in there? But as far as boxing from a distance, a lot of people have no shot. A lot of people may have no shot. This dude is creative. I'm glad he came out from nowhere, and he's impressing me.
Good performance by Corrales. He did fade a little bit, and my problem with it is that, and I'll go to EJ on this because we were talking about this during the show. Uchiyama, who you've compared to a smaller Vladimir Klitschko. Klitschko's problem was when he fought Tyson Fury, he wouldn't let his hands go.
Yep.
Uchiyama's problem in this fight, one, he couldn't figure out the speed and a little bit of awkwardness of Corrales, but also when he had opportunities to really land shots in there, particularly later on when Corrales started to fade a tiny bit, he wouldn't let his hands go.
Yeah, absolutely, man. He didn't want to get knocked out. I think he stood up, man. You're dealing with like Japanese people, very proud. The way he conducted himself in the last fight, he didn't even shake Corrales' hand. They walked out the ring before the fight was over. Like, lack of respect for me, yeah, it was like, you know what I mean? So I think this time coming in, I don't think he believed they were going to win, but we said, you know what? We're not going to open ourselves out. We're going to try and let Corrales wear himself down. We're going to try and make him mistakes, but he couldn't capitalize on the mistakes. He was too slow. And to be honest with you, I thought the fight was going to be called a draw, but the Japanese, they called it 100. They gave the decision, rightly so, to Corrales. I wasn't feeling Corrales' hairstyle. I think the blonde hair let him down. You know what I mean? I think if his hair was... you know I'm playing that. If he had his normal hairstyle like he done nothing, I think he would have fought better. But other than that, the right guy won, and Uchiyama should think about retirement at this point. There's other fights that he could fight, but there's no need to, you know what I mean? Like, is he gonna come out of Japan and fight? I don't know, but as far as he's concerned, as a samurai warrior, he went in there, he fought, and he had honor. He have honor in that performance that he never got embarrassed, because he got embarrassed in the first fight. So I think he can come out of that, and whether he retires or not, it's all up to him. He's done a lot of money in the sport. Corrales, on the other hand, I don't know what happened to him, man. I think he looked like he was partying too much with the blonde hair. He looked like he was having he performed much better in the first fight. He was doing the same thing. It was just different. So I don't know him. He needs to get better. People looking at the vision, they can make some good fights. So
the one thing I didn't like about Corrales was when he throws the big left hand, he gets himself out of position sometimes. He crosses his feet.
Dude, man, he was partying.
You do that against the wrong guy. You do that against a Loma.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good look.
Yeah, I agree with you. Him and Waters' dad was in the corner, and I was thinking to myself, him and Waters, they must have been partying in the Caribbean or whatever, man, eating that good West Indian food or whatever, or good Caribbean food, because I don't think he performed absolutely great, but I had him winning the fight, and the right guy won the fight. You're right about what you said about your assessment in terms of leaving himself open, but you have to. Who's going to be brave enough to take him there? Because you know he can hit. And you know that's why Uchyama didn't do what he did, you know, and he did fight like in terms of Klitschko, cautious, because he didn't want to get knocked out, and that's the way that fight played out. It wasn't actually a great fight, but the right guy won, and we move on.
Gus and Daniel, your thought of Corrales' win against Uchiyama in the rematch?
Yeah, Mike, the psychological impacts of being viciously knocked out certainly did have lingering impacts on this fight. Now, we did talk about it. I did expect Uchiyama to come out cagey because he was talking about, almost reinforcing his defense initially to try and absorb the power, fearing that he could be knocked out early again. So strategy-wise, he was right. But the mistakes he was making was that in the second half of the fight, he was having better success because he was targeting the body to try and obviously negate Corrales' better foot movement. And his constant movement, and it's a very, Scorsese is right, it's actually very, proactive movement, which is obviously causing your opponent to constantly reset, because Uchiyama likes to almost like feint twice with the jab, come forward, come in and out to almost set an ambush like he historically does, and then fire his right hand lead over, and then his left hook, which is his signature punches and which has had a lot of knockouts. But Corrales wasn't falling for that. When Uchiyama would feint, he would come to the right and then fire his jab. Then Uchiyama would try, I don't know what he would do, pour out with his right hand. There was no conviction in these punches. Couldn't deal with the movement. Corrales is actually a very underestimated boxer, very, very good on the inside. He knows exactly when to switch as opposed to just randomly do it to confuse your opponent. There's actually methodology there. And even from an orthodox point, he was having good success when he was firing the right hand over. And you could see it was actually giving Uchiyama some trouble. Uchiyama's body work definitely did have an impact, but he started the body work far too late. He needed to come out and do it too early. But early on, he couldn't manage the distance, and he couldn't negate the speed and try and land, take advantage of his height and reach. Just couldn't. Corrales just kept forcing him to reset his offense. What I didn't really like, Mike, was a little bit too much clinching from Corrales.
Yes, particularly.
Yeah, and the referee was disgraceful. He just didn't allow them to fight out the clinch at all. He just interrupted straight away, and you could see Uchiyama looking at him thinking, come on, man, you got to let us try and fight out the break. But no sympathy for him. Corrales became a little bit ragged, sort of falling down, etc. A little bit of survival, but I guess he built up pretty much of a significant lead up until that stage. So in terms of the scoring, it was probably a 1-1-7, 1-1-1. Certainly not a split decision, and there was no knockout. You could see Corrales' left foot was in between Uchiyama's left foot was in between Corrales' feet. He was just leaning back. I think his balance gave out as he was trying to fire his right hand, leaning back. So there was an Uchiyama fired a sort of a left hand, but it didn't hit him at all. So that shouldn't have been scored a knockdown. So you got to give him credit. He knocked him out the first time. This time he came out and he outboxed him. A lot of credit to him.
And to Uchiyama's credit, in interviews after the fight, he even said that, look, that wasn't a knockdown. It wasn't a knockdown at all. It was just a situation with the feet was being mixed up and whatnot. I'll go to you, Daniel, Gail, and Jacob. Discuss Corrales' win over Uchiyama again in the rematch. And also, let's talk about what could be happening moving forward. What do you see for Jezreel Corrales?
It's difficult to see because I could see the future mainly because I watched the fight like afterwards, and I see when it came to the time when he was being tired, something that unfortunately affects a lot of Latino fighters. which is they try to put on the gas really, really early, and they start to fade a little bit in the later rounds. Against the wrong opponent, that's a very, very dangerous recipe. Luckily, I think part of what we saw here is psychology. Uchiyama knew that Corrales has the power to stop him. He showed it in emphatic fashion, and ultimately that affected his game plan, not to mention the foot movement of Corrales. I think Scorsese counted 6. I think I counted 7 times where he switched positions. But doing all that also may have contributed to him tiring out. As far as his future, we have to see, because remember, we're going to have another title fight with Pedraza and Gervonta Davis coming up pretty soon. And we still have the rest of that division that has to be sorted out. Like, it's pretty much everybody's trying to line up probably to not fight Lomachenko at this point. And Francisco Vargas right now is busy doing his own defenses, and there's a good chance he might rematch either Muir or Salido next after this fight. So the only option, like I said, if you want to do unification, would probably be to target the winner of Pedraza Davis. But I think he'll probably get a couple of easy defenses, try to build his stamina up, and then try to get in the big fight, because even at this stage, yeah, he proved he can beat Uchiyama both through the distance and with a knockout, but I don't think he's going to be lining up to say, okay, yeah, I want to fight Francisco Vargas right now, or I want to fight Lomachenko right now. He's not at that stage yet. He's a good fighter. Corrales is a good fighter. He's proven that he is a versatile fighter, very awkward style, but he's not quite there yet.
Gail, and then finally Jacob.
Yeah, I agree. Corrales matter discipline, right? Get a little bit near the end of the fight, plenty to win, but against tougher competition, and that division is very live right now. You know, he isn't going to be able to get away with those sort of mistakes anymore. I mean, he's just not going to be able to. But he's lucky that he's got lots and lots of options, because it is such a lively, fun division right now. That works against Uchiyama. He hasn't announced whether he's going to retire yet or not, but before he does that, I'd like to see him think about going up one division to 135, where the field's a little clearer. Why not give it a shot? You know, see if he's got some more years in him in a little less competitive division. And if it doesn't work for him, hey, you know, he gave it a try. There's some honor in, you know, going up a division and seeing what you can do before you retire. Why not?
Jacob, your thoughts?
I agree with Daniel in the sense that I don't think that Corrales is going to be able to compete with, you know, the top level of that division. But that doesn't mean he can't get some, you know, meaningful fights or even some easy defenses and, you know, maybe make a little money. You know, the Pedraza, I think winner of the Pedraza fight is a good one. That'd be a nice little fight to make. As far as Uchiyama, you know, is he done? I mean, really, he can only, you know, look inside himself and see, you know, does he have a little bit left in him, or does he, you know, want to call it a career? And often the theme on these podcasts is that, you know, these guys never call it a career until it's too late, until they're almost completely destroyed. So I have a feeling we'll see him back in the ring.
Going to you, Gus, with this. Last year, I did a lot of praising of Jonathan Guzman. In our year-end recap show last week, you seemed to be very intrigued with Guzman's initial title defense against Yukinori Oguni, and in reading between the lines, it was some suggestion there that there could be an upset. Well, indeed, it was an upset. Oguni defeated Guzman. Very surprised to many. Put him down, I believe, in round 4 or 5 with a beautiful body shot. Uh, really controlled the pace of the entire fight. Hurt him again later on in the round. Uh, while Guzman, he landed a few shots, but he wasn't consistent. And anytime he really tried to make a charge, Ogoni would do something to keep him at bay or land a decent shot on him that would get his attention. What did you see last week that kind of intimated that this or hinted of this possible upset?
What it was, Mike, when I was breaking down that sort of triangle, sort of Shingo Wake, Guzman, and sort of Oguni, common opponents, given that Wake had beaten Oguni, but in that fight, Oguni, his compact punches, his body shots and his hooks and his aggressive style, I felt he would almost be able to intimidate Guzman, use his height and his reach advantage, and he has actually very, very heavy hands as well. So I felt there was a possibility that he could be able to walk him down and specifically target the body. This particular fight, it was that was the perennial moments where he was firing those bolo punches from a textbook beautiful shots to his liver up top initially that were having so much impact. I felt Guzman, Mike, just came out a little bit too cautious, a little bit too cagey. He really needed to step up the tempo, if not throw a lot of volume punches, but I think he needed to use a lot more lateral movement, pot shotting, firing punches, high octane. That's what he needed to do. The problem with Oguni that I had against Wake was at times he was a little bit too straight lines, and I felt maybe Guzman's, if he came out with better foot and lateral movement, almost a little bit like what Corrales did against Uchiyama, that he would have better success fighting from the outside. But times he chose to pretty much stay a little bit too in the middle, but use a little bit of in and out movement, firing a few shots here and there, but it didn't really have any sort of detrimental impact on Oguni at all. He was able to absorb the punches. Yes, he was being hit and you could see some facial damage, but they didn't seem to buzz him up at all from what I could gather. I'm not sure what you thought, Mike, but he didn't seem to be hurt, thwarted. He just got more and more confident as the fight got on.
Got his attention for sure, but didn't hurt him to where it thwarted his mode of operation in the fight.
Yeah, if anything, it was more a Guzman, with a distressed look on his face. Tried to step it up a little bit later on in the fight, but really needed to make some indentations. Really hurt him, perhaps even put him down. But you could see the distress signs whenever Oguni hit him with that left to his liver. Guzman did not want anything to do with that. His left hand was constantly down. He was using at times a cross guard to obviously block those body shots. So when a fighter can almost detect the other's weakness to that extent that, look, I'm hurting to the body, I don't want to be hit to the body, then psychologically you've got one over them. Disappointing for Guzman. His first defeat when he's just been knocking everybody out. But sometimes when you're just winning and knocking everybody out, you're not really learning very much. Here he'll learn. I'm sure he'll learn a little bit more. Learn obviously how to fight at a different pace, different style of opponent. He's got to vary his tactics a little bit. Fantastic win for Oguni, and I can see certainly him and Shingo Wake rematching now, definitely in Japan.
I can see a rematch with Shingo Wake. I can also see a rematch with Guzman. I'm going to open it up for everybody here in the hangout in the panel. comments on Oguni's upset win over Jonathan Guzman. Anybody's free to respond and jump in.
That's why Gus got my Rookie of the Year, because the guy knows his boxing.
Thank you, mate.
Indeed. Gail, EJ, Scorsese, Daniel.
I haven't thought of that
It's
one
nice
yet.
to see an upset among all those fights in Japan. It's great stuff. I do think a rematch is in the rest of the division. I'd like to see if that performance was a deal. It wasn't just a great night for one guy and a bad night for other guys. You know, sometimes the bad night and the, you know, above average challenger coincides and you get a fight like that. I'd like to see if that can repeat itself in the rest of that division.
EJ, Daniel, Scorsese.
Nah, man, like I already got much to say in it. It was a very good performance, and you know, give a lot of credit to him, and I'd like to see. I look forward to his next fight.
You was going to say something, Daniel?
No, I said unfortunately I missed that fight, although I heard it was an upset. But I'm just loving the lower weight divisions right now because they're about to go off in 2017. They're really about to go off, and it's about time.
Indeed, indeed. One more fight to talk about. For those who, I'm going to introduce a fighter here on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. I haven't talked about previously. Talked about him a little bit last week, previewing his fight. Kosei Tanaka, fighter who Daniel mentioned, is a guy to look out for. Tanaka held a title at 105 strawweight. I was a little bit skeptical of him in previous fights. During this Japanese boxing bonanza, if you will, he fought Moises Fuentes for a vacant belt at 108. After watching that bout, my skepticism of him is gone. Comprehensive performance, emphatic, definitive, highly impressive. You can see from jump, minute 20 in, he popped Fuentes with the right hand. I believe it was a counter right. No, he faked with a jab and popped him with the right hand. And it was like, whoa. At that point, bam, I said, Fuentes, he doesn't have a shot in this fight. And that was in round one. Later on, I talked about him with Nauta and Asian Boxing on Twitter and future opponents. We'll get into that in a little bit. But for anybody who saw this fight, comment, because I left away like, oh, we talked about the lightweight fighters. This is a guy to really, really keep your eye on because there's some real potential here. And he's only 21.
He's only 21 and he's got power. I mean, he was pummeling Fuentes. The fact that Raul Cais stopped the fight so quick, you know, that tells me that there was some real damage done, maybe worse than we could see. I understand his nose had really been bleeding, you know, prior to that for quite a lengthy part of the fight. It was, you know, I mean, for a kid who's 21 years old, and what the heck is going on with these young guys in Japanese boxing? I mean, they just keep coming. There just seems to be a never-ending supply. It's just super exciting to see what's going on with the sport as a whole in Japan. I love this tradition of these New Year's Eve, New Year's Day boxing tournaments, if you will. And, you know, they kind of put all the guys through their paces right at the end of the year. And I think American fans, if they got a taste of this, would absolutely love it. But yeah, he just took Fuentes apart. And it was just a super performance and the kind of entertaining performance any fan would love to see.
EJ, I'm going to you. Unmute your mic, please, brother. Gail mentioned like the rise of Japanese boxing. You do a lot of English commentary of Japanese fights. Is this a true progression of fighters from Japan, or because we're living in the age of social media, where you see where their fights are more available now to the masses, we're just now taking notice.
No, Joe's right, man. It's true, man. It's a conveyor belt of they're actually investing. Like it's the same like the Jamaican team investing, Jamaican Island investing in the athletes. They've invested in boxing. They have taken promotions. They have a couple promotions out there. Usually, when you think of Japan, you think about wrestling, mixed martial arts. But they're on combat sports, but I think they really getting a lot of success in the lower weights. But I think as a girl brought up, I don't think it's just there they're gonna be settled. I think already they've got a middleweight. They're gonna be trying to push, and maybe in a couple of years you have a Japanese heavyweight. I think they're really trying to push through, because the thing is, like if their champions they bring up, they're really big in over there in Japan. They have a really big market, so there's a lot of money and demand for it. Obviously, even though boxing is a Western sport, but to be good and great at a Western sport and you're from Asia, that's great. I mean, as you saw with Inoue. So I think you're going to see more and more Japanese fighters come through the thing, and boxers at points, especially at the lower weights, where they've been dominating the lower weights for a very long time. So you're seeing emergence of, obviously, they grew up looking at like Inoue. Some young kids be looking at him. You got his younger brother. You're going to keep going on and on and on. So hopefully you're going to see them in different divisions, and maybe in 2 years' time you're going to see a Japanese middleweight, Japanese light heavyweight, and stuff like that. So I think it's emerging, doing quite well. You're going to say something?
Your mic is a little bit choppy, EJ.
Is it freezing? My bad, man. Don't worry about that. I'll come back.
Okay. So you might have to reboot or whatever and come back. I'll go to you, Scorsese, Gus, Daniel, Jacob. Anybody want to talk about this Tanaka win if you saw it?
I told you it was going to be a problem, Mike. That kid's going to be a problem. It's going to be fun. And I want to piggyback on something EJ said. When it comes to the exposure of Japanese fighters, the way technology is today, we are seeing a lot more of it. And not only are we seeing it in boxing, we're seeing it overall. Like I'm pointing it out again to WWE. WWE has made a very good point now of getting a lot of people from Japan now going into it, because now, thanks to technology, you can see Japanese wrestling. You're going to see a lot more of that now in boxing, which, like I said, gives a lot of attention now to the lower weight classes, because that's the area where they dominate. And people already know in the boxing world that if you really want to make money in those lower weight classes, you have to go to Japan. So that only helps them in that aspect. And once again, it's to see how much they joined within a generation, going from the Tokyo Dome for Tyson Douglas, where they were pretty much at a funeral parlor, even though they were watching literally a myth being destroyed in front of their eyes, to now this crowd that is vibrant, is loud, and they travel. That is going to be a very, very fun market to watch now. And we're probably going to pay a lot more attention to it now, because thanks to technology, we have access to it.
But what fighters are going to go in the world of boxing? We know today Andre Ward won't leave Oakland. Nobody goes anywhere now. They don't do anything big or different. They don't. I mean, I don't mean to bring this guy up because I don't want to start nothing here, but Stevenson said, hey, if the most money is in Australia, I go to Australia. You don't hear other people talking like he was talking about fighting Andre Ward. He said, if the most money is in Australia, I go to Australia. You don't hear other people saying that. So what's the use in having those markets if promoters are not going to take fighters there? I don't see Canelo saying, hey, I want to do a UK tour. I want to do a Japanese tour. Like, who's going? Who's the fighters that are going?
It depends on the weight class, though. It depends on the weight class, and depends on the fighter. Canelo's reached at a stage where he can go wherever almost, and he can make money.
Canelo doesn't need to go anywhere, so of course he's going to say that.
I mean, but who? Just who? Anybody? Like who's going?
Dude, there's a good chance that Chocolatito might go back to Japan.
Okay.
Because remember,
okay,
he's
talking as far as the small guys. Okay.
Yeah, the small guys. That's the market that you're going to see, which is great for boxing because
but you put the Tyson in there though, and was mentioning how Tyson was.
No, what I mentioned is how far the Japanese audience, as an audience, has progressed from people that were just watching, like the Tyson Douglas fight. They didn't know what to do.
You could hear a pin drop.
Yeah. To now, they're a lot more educated. They're a lot more vibrant. They invest a lot more in it now.
Okay. Well, I feel like the bigger weight classes would probably, I'm gonna say, better fights. If somebody had balls enough to, I mean, Manny goes to Asia, but Manny's Asian, you know, and
Kovalev goes to Canada.
Well, I mean, to be fair though, like they were kind of hinting at before, you have Roman Gonzalez that's gone over to Japan. You've had Jorge Linares, you've had Guillermo Rigondeaux.
Yeah,
so I don't necessarily see it as too far out of the realm of possibilities that we could see.
Yeah.
Some other fighters going over there too.
Now to joining us on the show, and I'm glad you're here because we're talking about Kosei Tanaka, his win over Moises Fuentes. We talked about this in long with Asian Boxing on Twitter the night of the fight, the evening of the fight. First of all, talk about how impressive Tanaka was because I had my questions about him before the fight. He answered a lot of them with this fight, and also get into the future of Tanaka because we talk about him as well. 108 is basically ruled by Japanese fighter, minus Lopez, who has a WBC belt. All the other champions are from Japan. We were going about, could he fight Taguchi, who has a WBA belt, Akira Yagashi, who has an IBF belt. So talk about Tanaka's win and how impressed you was by it, as well as what could be going forward. Who do you see him in the ring against, possibly?
Yeah, I was very impressed by Kosei Tanaka. I think that was pretty much like the performance of the New Year's weekend. I actually expected Moises Fuentes to win that fight. I thought just his overall experience and considering how much struggle Tanaka had with Vic Saludar back when he was at 105 with his first title, that, you know, Fuentes was going to be able to catch him early the same way he did Luis de la Rosa and I forgot which other fighter he knocked out in the first round. But I thought he was just going to be able to catch Tanaka early, draw him into a war, and prevail in that. Although I always give Tanaka a good shot because he had power. I mean, like I said in that Saludar fight, he was losing the fight. He basically brought himself out of losing with one shot, finished him. That was it. So, I mean, I knew that he had power, but I didn't know he had just the overall ability, speed, the skill that he showed, great jab, great movement. He was just too quick and too much of everything for Fuentes, who was really one of the, if not the best win on Donny Nietes' entire record.
Yeah, because he stopped him.
Yeah, for him to completely demolish Fuentes and stop him quicker and more easily, significantly more easily than Nietes even did in the rematch, and it took 2 fights for Nietes to even do that in the first place, is supremely impressive. I mean, considering the fact that you have some people that were considering Nietes on the fringes of like the pound-for-pound top 10 level. I didn't necessarily consider him that because I felt like he could have fought the likes of Taguchi or Ganigan Lopez or Pedro Guevara or somebody, and that might have put him in those rankings. But up until then, I didn't really see Nietes as that high, and I think Tanaka kind of showed it to a certain degree why. But as for Tanaka's own worth, I mean, the guy has said that he wants to fight, that he wants to win championships in 5 different divisions. He just won his second one, and I wouldn't even necessarily put it past him to be able to go up to 112 and take on anybody and everybody at the weight class. And that's not even necessarily saying anything bad about 112 because in spite of the fact that Gonzalez and Estrada both left there, it's still a pretty strong division. But as for his near future prospects at 108, I mean, he basically called out both Akira Higashi and Ryoichi Taguchi. So I could very easily see him fighting either of those guys. And matter of fact, I think I would favor him over both. You saw Higashi, he had a pretty easy fight versus Basapian, the fighter from Thailand. And, you know, he was able to take him out. But, of course, you know, we've seen him have struggles with the likes of Martin Teca and, you know, other fighters of that nature, Pedro Guevara as well. And then you have Taguchi, who had a pretty close run with, what was his name? Canizales, Carlos Canizales.
To a draw, if memory serves me correct.
Go ahead.
Held to a draw, if memory serves me correct, that fight with Canizales, right?
Yeah. It was held to a draw. And matter of fact, I mean, if you really wanted to choose a winner, I'd say that I'd edge more to Canizales than I would to Taguchi. And what really flummoxed Taguchi in that fight was Canizales' speed and movement. That's exactly the factors that Tanaka brings to that fight. So that's a big part of the reason why I favor him over both Taguchi, because I think he's quicker and has a little bit more snap and pop on the shots, and versus Yagashi because I think that he's just there's physically more to him than there is with Yagashi, and Yagashi's used to being able to kind of physically bully guys, almost like a Sean Porter, like a mini Sean Porter, but I don't think he's going to be able to do that with Tanaka at all.
Final question before we go on to Gus now. To better fight, a unification bout with either Taguchi or Akira Agashi, or a fight at 112 against Kazuta Ioka, who also fought during this New Year's weekend.
I think the Ioka fight would be more competitive and just probably a better fight overall. Because Ioka, I think, has power of his own, and Ioka was a guy that, he was pretty dominant at 105 and 108. It really wasn't until 112 where we started to see him start to struggle a little bit. I think because he's fighting guys his own size or bigger, and I think Tanaka's pretty much about the same size as him, really, even though he's at a weight class lower than he is right now. But I expect once he's the age that Ioka is, he'll probably be even higher in weight than Ioka is.
I'm going to you, Gus, because you kind of mentioned him last week to begin with, and how impressive you was with him. So
you can see why I mentioned him as the breakout boxer, given that the fight would have still been part of the year. Hence, I expected him certainly to win that fight, but the manner of the victory was the most impressive because Fuentes is a damn decent fighter, an excellent resume. He's got so many great champions on his CV. Don Nietes twice. Ivan Calderon, the great Puerto Rican, who I think had like 23 world title fights. Some crazy.
Yeah, he's one of the all-time great 105 pounders, right behind Ricardo Lopez, basically. And Fuentes ended his career.
Right.
Yeah. It was his last fight back in 2012, and certainly coming into this fight, you could see the size, the height, the reach. But I think the extra 3 pounds, certainly for Tanaka, given that he's a growing athlete as well, maturing, getting his strength slowly but surely, but nowhere obviously near his man strength. But the extra sort of 3 pounds certainly helped. And what was most impressive was the way he just kept circling the target. Fuentes just almost came out like he'd been smoking PCP the night before. He just almost didn't know where he was. He just couldn't really land any shots. The shots just looked so slow, so telegraphed.
It was almost reminiscent of Terence Crawford and John Molina.
Yeah, even a little bit like Nikolai Valuev and David Hay. Hay just getting out of the way and just fresh air shots. You could. When he was stepping in with the punches, it was working well. But early on, I think Tanaka landed, as you mentioned, Mike, an overhand right. But I think it was a left hook to the body early in round one as well. You could see the grimace on Fuentes' face. The power very early phased him. His jab was working beautifully, and he wasn't predictable in his jabbing. I like the way he'll feint, fire the right across. Sometimes he'll double feint and fire two rights. So he was trying to be quite creative in his offense. Moving from the left hand, but in the sort of fourth and fifth, it was his right hand that worked well. And we saw in the fifth, after sort of two clinches where Fuentes was hurt, beautiful left hook, right hand. Fuentes just, he tried to get out of the punches by lowering two, so the punches on top of their head effectively wiped him out. So, just a magnificent victory. Certainly exceeded my I expected him to win, but certainly not in that manner. Really made me happy that day. I was just thinking, wow, just something sensational. You witness, a young man, two-weight world champion in, what was it, his eighth or ninth fight? I can't even remember. something, so early. So yeah, great addition. The world is his oyster. He can stay there and fight Pedro Guerrero and Gallagher Lopez, who I think are rematching for the WBC. Two good fighters, but Akira Yagashi, I think he has the better of him. 1-1-2, why not? Take on Zhao Shiming in the big money fight if you can get it.
He boxed the shit out of Suming.
Yeah, well, and it really depends on if Shiming is able to actually defeat Don Nietes, because that's his mandatory, and it looks like that may
And
be
he's not.
next.
Well, Shiming is not going to defeat Nietes unless Nietes
Nietes is going to kill him.
Unless Nietes gets old in one night.
But eventually, who knows? Him and Inoue, some point in a couple of years or something.
I think that's the one to look for in the future. Him and possibly Inoue.
Yeah, before we move on to the news, I want your thoughts on Inoue. We talked about him a lot to begin the show. His win over Kono, as well as his future, as well as Oguni's upset over Jonathan Guzman.
Well, to start with Inoue, it looks like I'm not exactly sure if Gonzalez is going to be rematching Carlos Cuadras. Has been kind of
I'm hearing. I was reading today, and it looks like that Gonzalez may fight his mandatory next.
That was Cesar Kid Sorongvasai, right?
Yeah, the Thai fighter.
Yeah. That was actually the one that Cuadras beat to get his title. I mean, that's fair. You got to definitely take care of your mandatory so you don't get stripped. There's a reason you got that title in the first place. You got to defend it. So I mean, in light of that, I wouldn't mind seeing Inoue against either Carlos Cuadras or against Juan Francisco Estrada. I think either of those fights would be fantastic, and it'd be a very good way to truly measure exactly how Inoue stacks up at 115. I mean, we got a little bit of the taste of that with Kono, which we hadn't necessarily seen since Narvaez. The Narvaez blowout was incredible, and the way he destroyed Kono was pretty damn incredible too. Completely took him out of the game and splattered him with that one clean left hook. Managed to not hurt his hands this time, which is solid. But yeah, I mean, I think any of those fights would be great for him, and I think that he should and would be open to him because, I mean, he offered Luis Concepcion before Concepcion lost to Yafai. He offered him the fight for New Year's. He also offered the fight to Gervonta, the IBF champion. So, I mean, he's basically only been trying to fight either his number one contenders, who he's been fighting since Narvaez, or one of the other champions. So, to me, even though Estrada and Cuadras, neither of them have a belt, I'd imagine that those fights are really the best fights to be made for him and for what his overall status quo has been the last year or so. So, I mean, otherwise, I mean, I have heard the possibility of him potentially moving up to 118 sometime soon. I'm not sure necessarily how true that is, but that was from a site that was talking about Kal Yafai's next couple of fights. So I don't know if they had any particular bias with regard to that. But as for Inoue, I think he definitely still ranks as either the number one or number two fighter at 115. I think you could have an argument for Gonzalez too. But as for pound, I've rated him for pound for a minute now. I think what he did at 108 and then 115, just blowing up the top guy. And then after that, the fact that Taguchi became a champion after he beat him, he managed to catch him on the come up basically. Was pretty impressive. And then as for Oguni, Yukinori Oguni, fantastic performance from him. I expected Guzman to win that fight also, and similar to the Fuentes fight, and I saw Oguni pretty much box his ears off. I thought it was a pretty clear-cut decision for Oguni. I actually thought the judges had a little bit closer than they probably should have. But Guzman has a pretty athletic, agile type of style, pretty flashy style, but Oguni just used kind of the boxing basics, kept him at distance and picked them apart at distance, with the good jab and fantastic left hooks both to the body and the head. I was really impressed with him.
Indeed. I want to move on to the news segment here. If anybody want to jump in, please do. Looks like we're going to see a rematch between Anthony Crolla and Jorge Linares, March in Manchester. I look at this, I'm like, okay, I wonder what Crolla can do. How can he improve in this fight? I just don't see it. I don't see how anything he can do to improve this fight other than find a way to catch Linares on the chin, which we all know he doesn't have the best chin in the world. But the problem is the way Linares defeated him the first fight, the way he outclassed him, outskilled him, and how he closed the show at the end of that first fight. To me, that just shows he's a level above class wise. And again, I don't know in a rematch what Crolla can do to stop that. And anybody want to chime in?
I think you're right on the money. He's got his chance really is he's not gonna be able to outbox Linares, but he has to catch him with the shot. But you remember in that fight, Linares actually caught him with the shot and put him a little bit on Queer Street. So he's got to look out for that. But I got to give Linares credit. He's going back into the Lions Den, and he didn't have to. He won that fight pretty handily, but good for him.
EJ, Gus, you're both in the UK. You join us live right now. What's the word over there in terms of this rematch? Are they saying? What are they saying?
Daisy, man. And to meet you 1 minute soon, Daisy.
Okay, mute your mic, Scorsese. I'm hearing some background noise.
I've just done it. Yeah. Yeah, man. Like I think this is the Eddie Hearn kind of power for the fan base. To me, it was like it's reminded me of Smith. What's it, Marco Huck? No, not Marco. What's his name again? Oh man, that German guy. No. Oh, Abrahams. There we go. Smith Abrahams situation where on the scorecards it was too wide, and it felt like the fight should have been closer. And they call it a rematch, but in fact it's to be. He had a couple of rounds in that, but he wasn't really in the fight. He lost quite a lot of the fight. It's just basically a power move for his fan base and for the people who can believe, because end of the day, the fan base will pay the money, and Linares will come over and do what he will do again. So that's just what it is. Because for his fans to come out, it was a good night over here. They have a good undercard, probably pay-per-view, put some people on there, and everyone's gonna make some money. Has he got a chance? No, he hasn't got a chance. But end of the day, it's UK. Something can happen, but I don't think he could win the fight. But it's just basically a power move for the fan base and for the casual fans to come out and spend some money. So that's my take on it. I don't think. I mean, Crolla really felt he won the fight, and everyone else knew he lost the fight. No one could tell me anything different. Lost the fight, but him and his fan base, coach, and his fans, they believe he won the fight. Eddie Hearn is like, yeah, we think we should rematch. And remember, Eddie Hearn, he got a lot of weight these days. They refer to him as Don King. Well, hey, he's doing pretty well. Eddie Hearn's doing pretty well. So this is a power thing, and we're gonna see it. But to be honest with you, more or less the same results gonna happen.
Gus, and then anybody else who want to talk about it.
It's quite unusual, isn't it, Mike? I think Manchester is almost becoming like a second home for Linares as well. What is that? His third straight time on the bounce or something?
Yeah, man, look, if he can get the fights and he can get the money as well, I mean, can you really blame him?
Yeah, so it almost takes that sort of home field advantage out of the equation because he's so comfortable with the environment. He's beaten everybody over there sort of 2-0. So is that going to phase him at all? Is that going to give any significant advantage to Anthony? No. Jorge was magnificent the first fight. Coming back from broken hand or whatever it was. Vintage Linares, probably even better than what I've seen in the past. Some breathtaking combinations he was firing. Crolla was tough and rugged, and you mentioned something before, Mike. Does he have that capacity to improve or address some of those deficiencies now? Crolla is one of those fighters. If we go back and sort of cross-examine his career, he's improved a lot later on in his career after he's taken a number of losses. If we go back and look at some of his fights with Derry Matthews in the past, where he was actually boxing well, and then he'll get caught with a huge punch, be stopped or KO'd. So he does have that tendency sometimes to switch off, make those mistakes, then be caught. And it happened a little bit in the first fight with Linares, because that shot that Linares threw, where he almost sort of rotated like 180 degrees, firing that punch to the top of Crolla's head. It just sort of caught him completely off guard. But the speed and the sort of talk in which sort of Linares fired the punch, you know, it would have been hard for any sort of even world-class athlete to avoid that. Sometimes it's just a case of your opponent, his skill set is just supremely better than yours. You can go in there and go with that same Joe Gallagher high guard action. Is it really going to have much success? Because he'll tend to keep coming forward, try and absorb those punches behind the guard. But when you have somebody as creative and with the hand speed and sort of foot speed and power of Linares, it's difficult. Yes, Linares can be knocked out. He has been caught knocked out in successive fights in the past, but you know, the probability of that happening, I'm not sure whether Crolla has that sort of punch. Certainly up top, he tends to work better far into the body, the way he did with Darlis Perez, and the way he did with Ishmael Barroso, breaking him down. But it's going to be very, very difficult with Linares, who's going to be super confident as well. I think Linares in this fight may even probably could even stop him, Mike, in this one, you know, later on. The first fight wasn't close. I think it was a 9-3, 8-4 maximum. So, you know, good luck to Crolla, but I think resistance will be futile, I think.
I go to you now to Gale and Scorsese. My problem is Crolla, he fought behind a high guard, kind of similar to what he did in the Barroso fight, and yet Linares was still able to catch him with big shots. Also, whenever Crolla tried to step on the gas, Linares was always able to respond and hit him with shots that would get his attention and hurt him. So if Crolla tries to fight, okay, say Crolla sits there instead of fighting the high guard, try to present a style that makes Linares come to him. The issue is Linares, with his hand speed and his footwork, he can get there, pivot either way, right or left, at an angle, and get out before Crolla can respond with some shots. So for me, again, okay, the fight is happening, but I don't see anything that Crolla can do to improve. First, you Naoya, and then Gale and Scorsese.
Well, I mean, if anything, the only way I could see Crolla improving, I guess, is just have better conditioning, and for Linares to have worse conditioning, really. Just, you know, better conditioning, be able to keep coming forward and trying to go to that body a bit more, you know, hopefully try to cut Linares, you know, because Linares does have issues with getting cut fairly easily. He has paper skin, unfortunately, for him. But otherwise, yeah, I pretty much agree by and large, just because of the fact that Linares is so much quicker than him, and not even just quicker on the first shot, but quicker just overall with combinations. He'll be quicker on the first shot and quicker with combos as well. He'll be throwing 5 punches to Crolla's 1. And
he's the first to land the punch, and he'll land the first punch and the last punch.
Exactly. And I mean, even just he's very good at doing it on the inside and the outside too. There were several times where Crolla, it seemed like hurt Linares, got him up on the ropes, and then Linares, almost like a Sugar Ray Leonard, just flurried right off of it with a monster combination and came right back and won a round that he was probably losing. So it's pretty tough for me to see it. I think it's for Crolla, he just has to be supremely conditioned, the best shape of his life for a rematch with Linares. Really, I think the way that they're trying to sell the rematch basically is trying to, I guess, make the most out of Crolla's overall name value, because it's going to drop, I think, even further after a second Linares loss, and also basically just doing repeat business with Linares and being able to, you know, bring probably a pretty good crowd for a second time around.
Gale, Scorsese, and then finally Daniel and Jacob.
Well, let's call it what it is. First of all, this is clearly an economic fight, meaning the interest is there, the tickets will get sold, everybody's going to get a check. It's all good. I get it. Everyone deserves to make some money in this sport. It's a tough sport. And there is always a possibility, small as it is, infinitesimally small as it is, that Linares has the worst night of his life and Crolla has the best night of his life. Make it happen. But I really do think the only way Crolla can win is to change his approach so drastically. That is nearly impossible to change your approach and your mindset that much. He would need in my opinion, to fight at a measured distance with more patience that he simply doesn't have, that he just simply doesn't have. So he tries to engage with Linares, and he can't do it. But again, going back to my earlier statement, Linares going to have the worst night of his life and get cut. That opens up, several possibilities for Crolla to make hay while the sun shines. But if he doesn't, we're not going to see anything different. But you know what? It was an entertaining fight. If the fans like it, if it's a good night of boxing for them, they buy the tickets, everybody has a payday. I'm not going to criticize that. I really am not.
Scorsese.
Yeah, this Eddie Hearn getting away with it because he can get away with it. But then again, the guy did lose his title. That it was a voluntary defense, so they said it was a rematch clause in there. Some champions will see that they lost pretty handily and would go for a easier title or something. But give Crolla credit, he gonna get back in there and try to get that belt. I do feel the first fight was competitive because Linares does not know how to control pace. As pretty as it gets, he don't know the first thing about controlling pace. And Crolla, I think he should fight at a harder pace. Like Naoya said, come in better shape and let your hands go. He got a shot at winning the fight because it looked like he was coming on strong in the middle rounds. And then next thing you know, I remember him being hurt, I believe. And that fight changing from then on, it's like be in better shape, come in there and let them hands go because this guy will cut. He does not control pace. Like I said, everything's pretty. The defense isn't great. Everything's pretty offensively, but defense and things like that aren't great. He's an offensive fighter. His offense is his defense in a way. And Crolla can punch in between that. Hey, take your 3 shots, there's 5, but you just make sure you catching them on the glove. Keep your gloves up. Catch the speed on the glove, punch in between it. And hey, I'm picking Linares, but hey, dude did go back in there for a title again, so he feel he done something. I hope he's not crying like he was and when he got hit with that body shot and pushed up against the ropes. I hope that he throws that out and he doesn't look for that UK bias from the ref and just go in there and fight. If you get knocked out, you get knocked out.
Yeah, I go to you, Daniel and Jacob, and again, I can't reinforce this enough. I just don't see anything he can do because to me, Crolla fought his A-level best in that first fight. I don't know if he can fight any better. And if he can't fight any better, there's a good chance of not him just losing, getting stopped this time.
Pretty much. It's pretty much because that wasn't exactly the best performance by Linares either. He can definitely do a lot better. Now, I do believe this is a money grab, mainly for UK. And the main argument that I have with the fight possibly ending a little bit different is if Linares just pretty much stops caring. He turns into Adrian Broner during training camp and just doesn't care, but that's not Linares. He'll probably fight a lot better. He'll probably now position a little bit better, but I give Scorsese credit. The one thing he does not know how to do well is that pace control. But I could definitely still see him winning the fight, and timetable's correct enough where a fight later on with Mikey Garcia is not out of the cards. As far as timing. Promotional sides, yeah, that fight has an East Berlin Wall, unfortunately, tied to it. But luckily for Linares, he is only co-promoted by Golden Boy. He can easily go to say, I just want Mr. Honda to handle everything for this fight, Mikey Garcia.
Lastly, Jacob.
I would pick Linares to win, but your question is, can Crolla do something different, and was that the best that he could put out? I think for me, Linares does get a little lazy sometimes, and in that fight he did, but the problem was that Crolla didn't, I don't think, take or capitalize on those opportunities, and he would let Linares kind of, when he would get himself against the ropes or whatever, he let him kind of combo off the ropes and he wouldn't fire back. And knowing that Linares is so much faster than him, he's got to do a better job of either countering or getting off first to mess Linares' rhythm up. I do agree. I think it was Gus said that he's got to invest in the body earlier. I mean, that's always going to help you in a fight, especially a fighter that's faster than you. That's the way you're going to slow him down. And maybe, a little bit of what Gale said, maybe if he's conditioned well and Linares maybe thinks, oh, I won the first fight so easily that I don't have to, do the extras or whatever, and I'm gonna go in there. I beat him in his own town. Just gonna pick up my check and the win and go. Maybe he could catch him on a bad night. And again, Linares, I think Crolla has the power to hurt Linares, and Linares can be hurt. So that's pretty much his only shot. If he does those few things. So I think he could do those things, but will he do those things is a different question.
Let's move on and start shutting down the show by previewing what's coming up. Since there's no real fights this week, I want to move on to the weekend of the 14th. Look, Erislandy Lara fighting Yuri Foreman. I'm just going to open up for anybody. Does anyone give Yuri Foreman any kind of chance against Erislandy Lara? You're brave if you do.
If Lara trips on the way to the ring, then maybe.
Yeah, if Lara has a blackout, has an out of body experience during the fight, somebody else works a voodoo doll. We have seen shockers in boxing. We do see them. This would be a shocker with a capital SHOCKER exclamation point. I'm not saying there's absolutely zero possibility. This is why they have the fights. But if we thought Danny Garcia and Rob Salka was a mismatch, I'll leave it at that.
I give him a chance, I give him a chance. He's a former world champion. And, he didn't like the way his performance was against Carlo. And he's got a championship heart. He didn't have to take this fight. He could have fought easier opponent. I think
he tried to fight easier. He tried to fight easier opponent. He tried to fight that guy that's on Ego's channel, Troy King.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that I think he's gonna be a better performance than we actually think. And then I thought we'd probably call it a day. But I think he's not gonna embarrass himself. Like Yuri Foreman, this type of guy, he meets challenges. It's about challenges. And I give him a shot in terms of he's going to make it to the point, if he makes it. So if he gets to the point where he's there around 10 rounds and Lara's moving around and stuff and he's chasing after Lara, maybe the judges go the other way. So I'll give him a shot. But that's the only shot I give him. I think he'll acquit himself well. I actually don't think he's going to win the fight. But as a champion, a former champion, I think he'll really give it effort and he'll do a better performance than he did against until what happened to him against. So I give him a chance.
Very slim. I'm going back to you, EJ. We're going to talk about Jack James DeGale here. Unification bout at 168 pounds. Bout is going to happen on Showtime. I thought this bout when it's first announced, I figured I thought it was 50-50. My problem is Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, who was honored enough to be part of an interview. Thank you and Boxing Beats and Rhymes for inviting me for a question and answer with Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. He's no longer in Badou Jack's corner. I think that harms him because the improvement that you saw from Badou Jack was in large part due to Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. That and the fact that DeGale is a pretty good fighter who seems to fight to the level of his opponent, so I think he will fight very well in this bout. I think that's going to be the main difference. Your thoughts?
Yeah, he's got a lot to prove, and Eddie's not in his corner. If he does really well, then it doesn't show like it's made a difference. Eddie, like we said, I actually forgot that he was on the thing because there's so many people. But yeah, like Eddie was saying, Eddie was one when he came over. Eddie was the one with him, brought his way, and he just sent Eddie a text saying he was no longer with him. So karma's not too good there going into that fight. So he's got a lot to prove with his new trainer. I think it's Scully. I think it's not Scully. It's the other guy who fought Roy Jones. What's his name again?
His name escapes me, but I know who you're talking about.
He's only meant to fought
The guy who knocked down Roy Jones. Yeah.
Yeah, Roy Jones. Yeah, light heavyweight. He's
Lou DeVal. Yeah.
There you go, Lou DeVal, thanks, man. So he's got a lot to prove, and I don't actually give him a shot at all. Actually, I think James is just gonna embarrass him. To be fair, right? He's actually overachieved his buddy Jack and got the best out of it. Was that because of any stuff from having? I'm not too sure, but you know he bounced back pretty well from that loss. But that loss always sticks in my mind of how he just went out. And now, yes, he's done pretty well. Did Darrell underestimate him? The Butte fight, you know, was close. No, you know what I mean? Like, so this is should be a good fight. But I got James to win the fight. Clearly, even if Eddie Mustafa was in the corner, I still would have picked James DeGale. But we have to wait and see. Will it make an impact? Will it affect him? But in terms of game plan, bro, Eddie Mustafa knows his stuff. You know, he's a very knowledgeable guy. So we have to find out. But like you said, Mike, it will be a factor in the fight. Like Conor and John J. Jackson are in the corner. I'm not too sure they're all talking terms. We have to find out. Tim Bradley without Diaz, you know what I'm saying? You know, we have to find out, man. Fireman.
Now to and then Gus and then Jacob.
Yeah, I mean, I originally I thought this was a pretty close fight as well. I favor Badou Jack a bit more heavily now, considering the good body work that he's shown his last couple of fights, and also considering the fact that I pretty much thought that DeGale lost the fight with Porky Medina, and I thought it was a pretty clear loss too. And a big part of the reason why I thought that they lost that fight was the body work, and so I kind of fit in Jack where Medina's body work fit in, and to me, it's like fitting two puzzle pieces together, basically. I do give DeGale a chance, especially early, considering considering Jack starts a little bit slow, but considering how much DeGale's style overall breaks down towards the middle into the late rounds, and his stamina is a bit of an issue as well, whereas Jack seems to get stronger as the rounds go on, and just his overall technique doesn't really break down at all, in spite of the fact that sometimes he may be in a hard fight here and there. I favor Jack. I think he's just a better boxer, better technique, and better gas tank as well.
Gus, Jacob, and Scorsese. Are you there, Gus?
Yeah. Sorry, just had the mic on mute. Yeah, thank God this fight is coming around, because it's just taken almost an eternity to sort of negotiate. Difficult fight to call, Mike, primarily because the sort of intangible of James DeGale. He may be, or he certainly is the more sort of flamboyant, skillful boxer. But Badou Jack is a very underestimated, calm operator. Will work definitely well within his zone. He knows exactly his skills, his limitations. Will pace himself very well as well. Can counterpunch very well, and he can break down his opponent systematically. May not be a concussive puncher, but he can certainly break you down. So those factors against DeGale. Now, the interesting aspect, Mike, and we hear a lot about the theories that he can be very erratic over the 12 rounds. You know, we saw against Lucien Boudet where he came out initially, I think the first 4 or 5 rounds, he put on an absolute masterclass. Just sensational boxing. The same with Darrell a little bit, and then the middle and latter rounds, he'll either disappear, go walkabout, or some unknown factor, whether he feels that he's just banked sufficient rounds and then he can just pretty much coast. So he's almost relying on him and what Jim McDonald is telling him, that look, don't try and deplete your gas tank a little bit too much, or it may. But when you look at the George Groves loss that he had, I disagree with the fact that he gasses in the later rounds, because he was better in the later rounds in this fight. He needed to pull out the later rounds. It was Groves who actually had the better early and mid start, but DeGale working the ladder rounds and the championship rounds, I felt won him the fight. So I feel he is a 12-round athlete. He can fight at that. So whether it's a combination of, motivation fighting against to the level of his opponent, some of those factors, but it's a very dangerous component, and you don't really want to be pissing around with that too much, because it will backfire on him eventually if he doesn't pace it evenly to the extent that he may not be able to knock out his opponent. But look, and the other factor with the Porky Medina fight as well, Mike, is that in that fight, I think it was almost a little bit of an identity crisis in which he was almost trying to please the crowd. So a little bit too flamboyant, not pertaining to his fundamentals, what could have won the fight, but almost, dictated by what the crowd want. And that's also very, very dangerous as well. So clearly Jim McDonald really needs to step into this fight and say, look, don't bother with any of those aspects. Yes, you want to put on an entertaining fight. Absolutely. This is a unification fight. Let's not forget. So, it's going to get everybody's attention, but you cannot be pissing around with this opponent, because he will take you out. So you got to keep to your fundamentals. You got to box. Yeah, you've got to be elusive and creative, because that's what I feel is going to win him the fight if he tends to do that. But if he comes a little bit too erratic, putting his hands down, maybe using too much flamboyant, then I feel Badou Jack's methodical approach is going to be a little bit better in this fight. So it really all comes down to what sort of James DeGale it is. If he's motivated, focused, and disciplined, then I feel he can win the fight. But if it's a flamboyant, erratic James DeGale early on, then I feel he's going to get unstuck.
Jacob, Scorsese.
Yeah, to me, this fight's a lot closer than I originally had it, based off the performances, the recent performances of DeGale and Jack. I think that Jack, I had DeGale kind of winning this fight pretty handedly, but Jack has closed that gap. But I still think DeGale has the skill to be able to beat Jack. I think it'll be a good fight. First of all, I want to say thank God it's finally happening, because we thought we were going to get this last year. And I hate for fighters in their primes to be put on the shelves, and especially something like this that's a unification fight. But I think DeGale just, he's had some really good performances. Does his conditioning, could it be better? Yes, but I don't think that he completely is out of the fight, in those later rounds. I think, he's a fast starter, and he comes out kind of very fast, and so he could probably spread that around a little bit more, and that would help him out. But I think it should be a competitive fight. I'm going with DeGale on this, and plus his sister is fucking hot fire, so.
Unification bout. Scorsese, Badou, Jack, and James DeGale. What's your thoughts? And then you can follow up. Scorsese, and then you can follow up Gale, and finally Daniel.
It's gonna be color TV versus black and white TV, but it's gonna be competitive. It's going to be like a style sort of verse, I guess you can say, technical substance in a way. And the cards are going to be everywhere. Fans and the judges alike. Well, maybe not the judges. It is taking place in Las Vegas, correct?
I believe so.
No, New York.
No, New York.
Oh,
New York.
Right, New York.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Well, the last time a European guy, Frampton came over, he got the decision. Now, I didn't think he deserved it, but so I think it'll be okay. But either way, it's going to be, are you scoring the body shots of Badou Jack? Are you looking at the style of James DeGale? Once again, pace pushing. James DeGale seems to have no clue of how to keep a guy's pace down. He struggles with that. You always see guys throwing punches at him. You don't want to be always the target of somebody. I mean, of course they can't aim at nothing else, but you want to sometimes make yourself less of a target or break the range, make them reset, do something. They don't. Him and it's two guys that we just mentioned that about. James DeGale definitely does that. As far as Mustafa Muhammad being out the corner, I do think he played a major role in beating the likes of DeGale when they was telling him go to the body, keep going to the body, keep the pressure on him. Badou Jack does credit Duvall with his improvements because he holds the mitts better and things like that. But I kind of wish he would have waited one more fight and had this guy in his ear, like, and then you could have took some tune-ups at 75 or something that gave you some better instruction. But I'm trying not to judge based off that. Just going, hopefully he knows what got him here, and what's got him is having that body attack, catching shots, returning shots, staying in the pocket, having a strong jab. And I really feel like DeGale should not be able to hurt him. Despite that knockout loss he got, I don't think DeGale will be able to hurt him. But DeGale is doing new like strength and conditioning work. I've been following this fight pretty hard. And I think it's gonna all lead up to me just being pissed that it's so close and you really can't pick a winner and people going back and forth and they might not do it again. I think that's what's going to come down to in the conclusion. Is going to really piss me off. But I'm sort of rooting for Jack because he got that underdog story to him. And both of these guys a year ago were my fighters of the year. That I think they done phenomenal stuff. It could have happened in September. They finally got it. Can't complain. Put a nice undercard together with it. Too close to call, man. Just too close to call. Too damn close to call.
Gail, and then finally Daniel.
Yeah, this is a pleasure because you're absolutely right. It's a 50-50 fight. It swings from 50-50 depending on which version of which guy comes into the ring. It reminds me a little bit of the fight we just saw between Charlo and J-Rock Williams. Which guy was going to be the best version of himself that night. I'm not predicting we're going to get a knockout on the Charlo level. Make no mistake. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is prior to that fight, we thought both guys had a pretty good shot at it, depending on what happened, what they brought to the table. It's a great way to start this year. And I think one theme we're going to see finally, I'm hoping the boxing gods are listening to the Pound for Pound report tonight, that we're going to finally see the matchups that need to get made. We don't sit around and wait for them. All of the other intangibles are fair. It's in the right venue with the right judges. Nobody's got, overwhelming home cooking on his side. And we get fights that will resurrect the sport among the sort of mid-range casual fans and bring it back. And I think this year, I think a lot of the promoters have learned their lesson. A lot of the guys have learned their lesson. They can't be sitting on this stuff anymore. So may this be the first of many, many good even matchups that are entertaining with the right result. Whoever deserves it should win.
Finally, Daniel.
First, like I said, I'm glad we finally got this fight. This should have happened 4 months ago, but luckily we got a decent fight out of it. And I'm worried about the fact that Eddie Mustafa's not in Badou Jack's corner, because once Mustafa came into the ring, Badou Jack really started focusing on the body punch. And that's been his bread and butter to getting victories. And that's what he needs to do with DeGale, who doesn't really, like I said, he does have a tendency to fight down to his level of competition. He's not going to do that in this case with Badou Jack, but if Badou Jack can actually just focus on the body, he won't have a late spurt going into it, and it might end things. And not to mention that DeGale may not be completely in the fight. Like, he's been talking more about Floyd being after his sister than the fight.
Oh dear.
That's just his personality. James DeGale go from A to Z.
Yeah.
Can you blame him though? His sister's fucking smoking, man.
Man, yeah.
I think we got the point, Jacob.
I mean, she is.
No, I just want to say it one more time. She is beautiful.
She's fine.
No question, but get in line, man.
She is fine though.
Yeah, she's the dime. That Eloise DeGale is a dime.
They show her at least 3 times in the broadcast, every single fight.
Only three. Oh, you weren't paying attention.
You got some long ass feet.
Like 10.
It's gonna be more like 13 this next time.
You got some long ass feet like her brother. She got some long ass feet like her brother James, though. Check that out the next time.
That doesn't. It don't really matter in this case.
James was about a size 14. I'm telling you, James was about a size 14, and she right there next to him, man. Check it out.
Oh,
I'm looking at her face.
Are you saying if those cold feet were in bed next to you, you'd care?
I'm going to say showtime. Forget about looking at her face. Can we see her feet, please?
She could have Shaq's ass feet.
We're not going to have a boomerang situation.
I think the pound for pound report's going to start getting a reputation for foot fetish stuff going on here. Watch it.
No.
Boy, we backed off of that one.
They got a foot fetish.
I did not mention the foot at all. I just mentioned the fact that James DeGale thinks that Floyd's going after his sister, and like I said, but that tells me that his mind is not on the fight.
Or
if your mind is more
that he's so relaxed he can goof around.
Man, I'm telling you,
which is dangerous.
Listen to the previous interview. He go from A to Z all the time. Smile on his face, crazy looking. He's a character, man. That dude is focused on that fight. He focused.
He better be. He better be, because like I said, Badou Jack, he's impressed me a lot over the last couple of years. Now, like I said, that's the part that worries me about when Mustafa's not in this corner. Was all of that Mustafa? Was all those improvements the fact that Eddie Mustafa was in his corner? Or did he just take lessons and actually learn them and ingrain them into his game plan? Which in this case he's better doing, because you get DeGale late, you might tire him. You might pull a big upset. And either way, like I said, whoever wins is gonna get another big money fight in the UK, because the WBC is actually gonna try to enforce Callum Smith's mandatory for this fight. So whoever's fighting next, they're still gonna have to fight their next fight in the UK. So if I'm Jack, I'd rather get two decent UK paydays rather than just one.
Hey, can I ask a question to the panel though? Like the opponents, I know DeGale did DeRail, he did Butte, then he did Porky. Jack did DeRail, he did Butte last. Who was after DeRail? Gross. Yeah, Gross. Like who's faced the opponents in those 3 fights to get them ready for the next guy? I feel like it's more DeGale, because he dealt with that body work a lot, but then again, you look at Andre DeRail, he doesn't place his shots very much. Whereas Badou Jack, if he gets you on them ropes and gets you tired like that, you saw what he did to the other DeRail on the ropes, and we know. I think it's even. In the question I just asked.
And remember, George Groves was outworking him at times, so he did well to nullify the high volume as well with the body work.
Yeah, honestly, stylistically, I'd say Groves, Durrell, and Bude are more similar to DeGale than Bude and Durrell are similar to Jack. I could see Medina a little bit with the body work, but I'd say if anything, Jack is probably better recently prepared.
Yeah, I could say that. Yeah, the styles of those 3 fighters are very, very similar. And like I said, we go back to the body work. Not very few fighters invest to the body the way Badou Jack has done in his recent fights.
But that head got to fall. If DeGale's in better shape, like he's saying, with the strength and conditioning, if that head doesn't fall in New York, I don't see him getting no credit for it. None. He got to get those headshots in.
You got a point there.
Interesting bout on the undercard. Jose Pedraza, I believe, IBF Jr. lightweight champion, defending the belt against Gervonta Davis, young upstart, promoted by Mayweather Promotions. Maybe it's just me, but I see so many parallels to Mayweather when he fought Chiconito Hernandez, Genaro Hernandez, his first title shot, ironically enough, at 130 pounds at junior lightweight. I look at this bout of Pedraza and Davis as that kind of bout on a smaller scale. Davis, young, talented guy, against kind of an established guy in Pedraza. The question is, Davis, who's super talented, is he the kind of fighter where he is so talented that sometimes experience may go out the window, or is Pedraza the kind of guy? Is he good enough where his experience and his in the style that he presents in the ring will that be able to overcome uh, the talent and exuberance of Davis, unlike Gennaro Hernandez and Floyd, where Floyd, he was just such a budding talent that even the likes of a Gennaro Hernandez, uh, Floyd was just too much for him. So I'm gonna just open it up for everybody here to jump in. Your thoughts on this bout? This is probably the most intriguing bout of that weekend, even more so than Jack and DeGale, in my opinion.
I could really see either possibility happening, especially with regard to the fact that Pedraza, I know, has recently had a little bit of a struggle making the weight. I could see him potentially being somewhat compromised in terms of his overall ability, movement, his conditioning. And Gervonta Davis, I mean, he's not a small guy himself, but I think he at least still has some more weight cuts in him to 130, more so than Pedraza does in terms of actually being used to it. And honestly, to me, this fight almost looks reminiscent of the way Jonathan Guzman versus Shingo Wake was, where I think Wake was really more experienced and just a better boxer, but I thought similar to Guzman that Davis has a little bit more physicality to him, and he can not only box with Pedraza at a certain level, even though I think Pedraza is a little bit better technically, but I think he can force him into the type of physical fight that pushes the pace beyond what Pedraza's used to. Somewhat similar to Edwin Cherry, but I think just his overall physicality and his strength will play a heavy role, and I think that he'll get the victory due to that. Only slightly, though. I only favor that slightly because I could see Pedraza being able to outbox him as well, just due to Davis's overall inexperience.
Thoughts from anyone else?
Yeah. No, go ahead, Jacob.
I was just gonna say I'm picking Davis in this one.
Based on?
I just think that he's going to impose his will on Pedraza, and I think he's going to catch him and put him out. I'll say mid-round.
You were going to say something, Daniel?
It's not, well, it's a little bit of both when it comes to what Nata said. Like, as far as boxing skill, I can see Pedraza just outboxing Davis, but Davis does have a little bit of Sean Porter in him, where he'll just physically try to impose his will on him. I just hope A, his inexperience, and B, all the stuff that he's had to deal with, where he's pretty much almost at war with his own promoter.
Yeah, because originally this bout was supposed to happen October, November, late last year, and then Davis went on Twitter, basically a Twitter rant against Mayweather promotion against Floyd, who, to Floyd's credit, is basically trying to guide this kid, trying to say, look at the example. I've been through it. I've seen it all. You should maybe go another route in terms of your outside boxing life. And Davis, being the young hothead he is, just really didn't take that kind of advice well.
Oh, no, he didn't take it, but then Floyd punished him by shoving him for a while.
Right.
Which can really hurt a young fighter. Now, luckily to balance it out, it's true. Pedraza hadn't exactly looked really, really good in his last few fights. But that entire situation where he's even complained to this day that Floyd's not really promoting his fight, even though it could lead to another champion on the money team. So that may have played into it. And Pedraza, like I said, Pedraza's already calm. He's already used to championship fights, but I do think his eyes are also on lightweight. His eyes may be on Felix Verdejo, and try to get, like I said, try to really now that he somewhat announced it, try to actually claim the throne that Miguel Cotto is gonna leave at the end of the year. But
okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but I do think I could see him outboxing. I could see him outboxing Davis. And unfortunately, when it comes to Mayweather promotions, when it comes to their fighters, a lot of the drama overshadows a lot of their ring work. And I hope, and Davis might actually fall into that trap. There's very few fighters. Jack is one of them that can supersede that and actually win. I don't think Davis is at that point yet. Not quite.
I'm going to Gus and EJ and Gus on this. First of all, overseas perspective, your thoughts on this bout, and more importantly, what's the betting odds?
I know.
Anyway, your thoughts on this bout.
Mike,
Pedraza
it's amazing. You boxed two crazy gamblers. I know EJ has really toned it down, but to be fair, I've been so ill last week. I haven't even looked at the odds, but I certainly will do at some point in the show because I'm keen to find out myself. I wouldn't be surprised if Davis was the favorite on the basis of that him being a TMT fighter. So I'm curious to find that myself. But in terms of the fight, now Floyd must have supreme confidence in his fighter to put him into a world title fight so early. Because if you look at Davis, he's been in the ring with guys who have had like I can't remember 30 or 34 losses and 18 losses and 19 losses. So it's a massive step up in class and competition with Pedraza. Now we know Pedraza can also fight against good boxers because Stephen Smith was a very good boxer who he fought against, tall and long as well. He was an outstanding amateur. At times he was outworking Pedraza, but Pedraza who may not be a concussive puncher, can vary his tactics on the inside, and he was able to, hurt Smith and even put him down to the canvas as well. So it's probably more that sort of stinging, attritional sort of punches as opposed to being concussive. But in this particular fight, it will be Tank's physicality, and that is exactly what he has to impose in this fight. It's going to be speed, angles, and physicality, and almost try bullying Pedraza. So if you're almost gambling on the fact that he might be a little bit, weight drawn, hence he may be weak because he's cutting weight a little bit too much. So Davis's power and those factors that we talked about, speed, athleticism, aggression, power, and that hunger, that might just be a little bit too much. But then again, very, very difficult to know. Pedraza's sort of seasoned, methodical, sort of robust stance could be a little bit too much for somebody just far too inexperienced and just thrown in the deep end a little bit too quickly. So it really is a 50-50 either of those factors, I think.
Betting odds aside, EJ, your level of interest for this fight.
Hold on, 1 second, man. 1 second, Michael.
Oh, I'll go to Scorsese and Gale. Scorsese and Gale, Pedraza, Gervonta Davis. Your thoughts?
3-inch height advantage for Pedraza. Probably a 2-inch reach advantage. Probably less. I can't remember. I remember seeing it, but I knew it wasn't a lot. I see Gervonta leaping in with that left hook, and I could see Pedraza just hitting him with a 6-inch jab time and time again. Or then again, if this shot lands, this Tank kid is on pace with breaking faces with Rigo. I know it's the opponents, like I said, bones are not they're not pound for pound. Bones are bones. And he's breaking faces on pace with Rigondeaux. And it's like that's real power when somebody's doing something like that. They're hitting you in pinpoint spots. It's gonna be easy for Pedraza to tie him up, mainly because Pedraza's not a little boy at the weight, and he's tall at the weight, so he could just kind of come over him, sort of like Brook and Vladimir Klitschko style, how he does opponents even when they're fucking taller than him, like a dummy. But in this case, it would work, and I don't see working out of clinches. I see his physicality more as a leaping kind of physicality, not as a solid pressure on you, and then I'm attacking on 2 feet. He's a more of a leaping kind of fighter. His opponents just ain't been as, they haven't made him show me enough to make me feel like, even with this champion that's been erratic at times, that he could come in here and just take this belt from him. I remember the Cherry fight, the pressure wasn't there. I still felt Cherry wasn't doing enough, but even though I felt he won, he wasn't doing as much as he could do. I feel like if Tank can cut the ring down and go for it with 2 hands on 2 feet, keeping his guards up, keeping his head movement, yes, he could cause problem. But if he leaping into this longer, taller fighter and doesn't make an adjustment, because I haven't had to see him adjust, so I don't know if he's capable of doing it. I'm not going to say it's him just because he was Floyd Mayweather. It's in him. I'm not going to say it's in him just because he was Floyd Mayweather. I got to see him do it. I really feel like he's going to eat a lot of jabs. Pedraza is technical. He can pinpoint. He can sharpshoot. Once again, man, a fight I'm in the dark about, but it's like that's what you're supposed to be as a boxing fan. You're supposed to not feel like you know this shit, and that's when you know you're getting a good fight. So that's a good card altogether.
Gail.
What concerns me about Davis is exactly as Gus mentioned. I believe it was Gus. He's a bit of a hothead, and I've gotten into it with him from time to time. He's backed off, which is kind of interesting with me. He is the kind of guy who's got the physical skills, but I'm concerned about his level of maturity. And that is something Pedraza can definitely exploit. If he can frustrate him with some of his boxing skills, stay out of the way, use that height and reach advantage, and make himself a very difficult target to get at, Gervonta may throw caution to the wind, get mad at Pedraza or himself, do something stupid. And that's, I'm sure, what Pedraza is counting on. The other thing about Pedraza is, while Davis may have been exposed to certain, tactics in the ring, Pedraza, I'm sure, knows every dirty trick in the book. And if he doesn't use a few, I'll be very surprised. As long as he can get away with it, I don't know who the referee is assigned to the fight, but that would be a very smart thing for him to do. He's seen plenty. I think this is a big leap for Davis. I think this is exactly the kind of tough opponent who's got a lot more nuances to him than just a straight ahead. Davis would be better off with a straight ahead banger coming right at him, and he's not going to see that. And he has got to keep his wits about him or he'll lose. But that is partially what makes this such an intriguing fight. It's not strictly the skills of the two, but how they deploy them and where are their heads at. Where are their heads at on that night? We're going to find out.
Going back to you, EJ, to shut down to close the show. Your level of interest for this fight?
No, none at all.
None?
No. He's gonna tank like his name is gonna tank. So there's none. It's not. I'm not really interested at all.
So it's like meh.
I kind of agree with EJ. Like the name Tank, he could possibly tank, man. Like, what have you seen him do is besides leaping at opponents and throw hard? Have you seen him control opponent with a jab? You've seen him get hit. He throws wide power shots. He's got some good head movement. But
Michael, you asked a good question. Now, seriously, I'm not even interested. I was gonna say it before, man, but you just put it there. Level interest in me is actually 0. I'm not really interested. It's just one of the fights on the calendar I'll watch, but I'm not really. I was more interested in the Japanese card. You know what I mean? But this fight here, nah, I'm interested. So
so it's like man.
It'll be a good fight. It's just hard to call, EJ. I'm telling you.
I'm not even gonna put nothing on it. Look, bro, I'm a boxing fan. I'll watch it, but I'm not interested. It's not doing nothing for me, man. The dude, for me, I'll tell you, I can go into it more in terms of building a fighter. The whole idea, Floyd, this back. I'm not into that the soap opera thing of fighting. You know what I mean? I like fighters being built. I'm used to especially when I came in the fight, like Mike Tyson fought every month. building a fighter. So when he went against the champions, it was like, all right, let's see if he can make it. I'm used to that sort of format. Like, it's the same. Okay, he's stepping up, but I haven't seen enough of him to get me excited. His style to me.
I think he probably had about 150 amateur fights. He's been.
I'm just trying to say what I've seen, man. Like, so I'm just gonna go by what I've seen. I remember I'm in the UK. If Gus has seen more of him, then Gus can maybe say something.
You know what EJ's more interested in? You know what EJ's more interested in?
I ain't interested in Game of Thrones.
No. You know what you're more interested in? You're more interested in Soulja Boy versus Chris Brown, and don't think I didn't see that little avatar or infiltrate my show, sir.
You know what, Mike? I can't even deny that. I am interested in that fight. That fight is gonna have big repercussions because you know what it is. If you read, hold on, 1 minute, I'm gonna bring it up. I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you.
I don't need to see it again.
What, a fight between two has-beens?
No. It's nothing to do with that. It's to do with the gang culture. It's to do with the gang culture in Chicago. Like, guys are shooting each other on the street. These dudes are big celebrities. If they can show the youth, instead of going out and killing each other, that they can finish it in the ring, then they've done something. I think that's what people need to understand. Like, these people are killing each other on the street, and like, if you couldn't say, you know what, if you've got a problem, let's go finish it in the ring. So that's what I'm interested in this fight. Yeah, I am. I'm more interested in that than I'm interested in what you just mentioned about Gervonta. So yeah. I'm interested.
You got no damn respect for no Soulja Boy, really?
It's not really that. It's just the idea that these guys are gonna get to the point if Tupac and Biggie had their grievances and they could have sailed in the ring, and make a lot of money, and it's good for our sport. Why not? Like, the UFC will market Brock Lesnar, who never done nothing against their champion. Like, man, if it makes money, it makes sense.
Put me on the undercard. Put me on the undercard.
Who paid what Scorsese versus Ray Jones? But give me hands up right now. Scorsese versus Ray Jones, man. If Scorsese wants that fight from time, I'm not going to cover. It's not even going to be competitive.
Roy Jones too flat-footed right now for me, man. He's too flat-footed right now, man.
I'll just catch the vine of it. I'll just catch the vine of Scorsese getting lit up.
Tonight, man.
On the reals, yeah. If two celebrities and they have the grievances and they can settle in the ring, I'm all for it. You can put it on the undercard of a major fight. You won't, you know what I'm trying to say? And just let these two guys duke it out. And in the day, are they going to shake his hand? Hopefully so. And then maybe the youth can learn something from it. So, yeah, I'm more interested in that fight. And Tank, you know what I'm saying? It's just that I haven't seen enough of him. So my interest is actually zero, but I will watch the fight. So that's my opinion.
Yeah.
Scorsese, you're one of our brethren. So if you're fighting Roy Jones, I'm sorry, man. We're streaming it illegally.
Yeah. We'll be doing that, and
I'm winning. Hey, if it's a 3 round, I'm winning, man. I'm just gonna pick my feet up in 3 rounds. You know?
My God! Can a man get some support from his friends?
I'll curse Roy Jones.
The loyalty factor here is just very sketchy.
Oh man!
Wow.
Well, I'm looking at this picture, and I'm asking, that's not Soulja Boy. Soulja Boy's from Cleveland. The real Soulja Boy's from Cleveland. Like, Mike is old enough to know who the real Soulja Boy is.
Yeah, he do got a point there.
This little kid, he ain't Soulja Boy, motherfucker. You ain't take that name from that dude in Cleveland.
He do got a point there. You know, yeah.
Mike,
you ain't have to put age out there, man. But you do got a point there, man.
I saw a tape of Chris Brown doing the mitts. And just look at his front foot. You just might think Soulja Boy got a shot. The way he's this is crazy. And then you see the shot of Soulja Boy sparring. Now him doing shadow boxing, and you say, what? Like, how can you dance that well? Both of you dance as good as you do, and I guess you just got to kind of watch the sport to know how to throw a hook. I don't know.
We've gone from the sublime to ridiculous. I think it's time to shut down the show because you know who's not going to pay any attention to this? This guy. So I think we'll
put it to you this way. It's such ludicrous. It's such desecration that it might as well be the thing that Trump puts up over his inauguration. That's how ludicrous this thing is.
Mike, you're going to tweet about it at least twice.
No hell I'm not. And I think on that note, go ahead, Gus.
Yeah, very quickly, man. Just on that fight we were talking about before, Davies is actually the comfortable underdog at 13-8 win.
Yeah, man.
Ooh,
He's
I'll
showing
take those.
enough, bro.
I'll take those
What
odds.
is he showing?
That's nearly 2-1.
There you go.
That's a nice odds there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be rethinking some bets over there, I think.
Draw us a 1-2 against, yeah, for the win. So
Small
there's not
fighter,
a great deal
man.
of spread.
So
Wow.
Gus, you gonna put some money on that?
Yeah, definitely. Probably about 100 points. Might even make it 1,000.
My man.
Oh,
My
wow.
And I think we're going to shut the show down on that note. I'm going to go around the panel here, around the hangout.
Yeah.
Ladies first, as always. Gail Falkenthal, Communities Digital News. For folks who want to talk to Sweet Science or anything else, let the folks know where they can find you.
Oh, you betcha. I am at Communities Digital News, which is COM, C-O-M-M, Digi, D-I-G-I News, comdiginews.com. And I'll tell you what, that Brown fight will be worth it just to see if Rihanna shows up.
Nah, she's not. Because like me on the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, she got standards. I'm going to now. It's been a while since you've been on, bro. For folks who want to talk to Sweet Science or anything else, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yeah, I mean, you could find me on my Twitter at Naotabox, N-A-O-T-A, capital B-O-X. And then if you just type in N-A-O-T-A on YouTube, you can find my channel. I talk about, I'm known as kind of a specialist among, for the lowest weights, but I talk about boxing from top to bottom, bottom to top. And I also try to give a little bit of shine to, prospects and some stories that may not necessarily be the biggest, like, mainstream news necessarily. And then also you can find me chopping it up with the guys on the Boxing Coalition podcast on iTunes. I'm on there fairly frequently, almost every week. And then also, catch me in EJ's chats and Boxing Beats and Rhymes' chats and elsewhere whenever people have me. Lukey Boxing also too. Shout out to Lukey Boxing on iTunes. Check out that podcast too. So.
Indeed. Thanks for being on the show this evening. Hope to have you on again. One of my boxing brohams, brethrens, EJ Boxing Live, join us live from the UK once again. For folks who want to talk to Sweet Science, for folks who want to talk basketball or anything else, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
EJ Boxing Live on Instagram, EJ Boxing Live on Twitter, EJ Boxing Live on YouTube. We're always covering boxing and like all the other things like Game of Thrones or anything like that, man. That's like, I'm broadening my horizons. I'm trying not to gamble this year, so you know what I mean. You're probably not gonna see. No, man, I've been burnt. I got burnt. I got really, like, at the end of 2015, I was nice, and in the 16, I just got burnt so much. So I'm not even looking at the odds, but I'm looking to broaden my horizons in terms of boxing and other things, and I'll be addressing on my channel. But yeah, EJ Boxing Live on YouTube.
And quickly, you also work the midst with the young fellas in the gyms. Talk about that right quick.
Oh yeah. Neesden Boxing Club, IQ Boxing Club. I'm a trainer. Work in the local community. Empowering the youth, and obviously we've got some guys turning pro actually. So we just signed the contract. Just fill out his form. He's got to do a physio. So one of our pro fighters, you'll be seeing them probably maybe April. And I'll be in the corner. I'm just trying to get my corner's license to be in the corner. But you know what I mean? Just trying to broaden my horizon in boxing and all other aspects. But become a power pound, love to talk that boxing with you guys, and it's always good to get other people's perspective, man. So yeah, that's it.
Oh, that's dope. You get some folks actually turning pro. You're gonna be working in the corner. So hopefully I'll see you on YouTube or fight yours on YouTube, EJ Boxing Live, doing some corner work as well. And also, the Game of Thrones, very good post analysis show on Game of Thrones you can find on YouTube whenever Game of Thrones is back in season. So please check that out. Scorsese, for folks who want to talk boxing or anything else, let the folks know where they can find you. And remember your Twitter this time.
EJ, if you in the corner and your guy ain't doing body work, you gonna hear from me, man. I'm telling you now, I ain't gonna take it easy on you like Gus said, just because I know you. Nope.
I'm a second. I'm not the head trainer. I'm a second.
Hey, if that head trainer ain't telling you EJ Boxing Live, better step in there and say, man, throw the hook to the body.
We ain't signing no losers now, so they gonna get some easy pancakes to turn over early, and then when they get stepped up, then they get stepped up. Then, but we got other fighters coming through. If they ain't doing the body work, school says you're gonna have to come from the States, come over, come show them. You're gonna have to, I mean, show them. I mean, put you in the ring. We're gonna film you. You're gonna have to show them. You know what I mean? That's how we're gonna do that.
Scorsese, pull a back muscle doing shadow boxing, man.
Yeah, I have before. Yeah, my Twitter, man. At my low place. I'm not looking this time. My YouTube as low space place space hashtag MLPF. And I'm not pulling my back anymore. I'm healthy enough to get in there and do those rounds, and I'm getting it in, man.
Respect.
Oh,
Michael,
okay. Oh, okay, I didn't hear you. Going to you, Gus. For folks who want to talk boxing or anything else, let the folks know where they can find you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Folks can catch up with me. Corruption in Boxing, all platforms. Just been doing a brand new journalistic piece. Actually, been interviewing one person from United Kingdom anti-doping. Conversations with British Boxing Border Control as well. I've got some time with the World Anti-Doping Agency as well, one of their reps. I've been looking at the sort of World Anti-Doping Code, and specifically the full disclosure and the prohibited lists, and how national bodies have to put people on the prohibited list, which has been governed by WADA at the moment, because I'm concerned about certain athletes where there has been speculation about failed drugs tests, but nothing has been disseminated onto these lists. So I'm just trying to do a piece on the transparency. So it's coming along very well. So if I don't get to put it out on my website, I'm going to have to find means to put it out very, very soon. So hopefully I can get that platform launched soon.
Jacob Rivera, Jab Hook Boxing, for folks who want to talk the sweet science or anything else, let the folks know where they can hit you up.
First of all, I want to say to Gail, the boxing gods only listen to one podcast, and that's a Pound for Pound Boxing.
Thanks.
True.
And the other thing too is I wanted to say thanks, Mike, for having me on the show as always. And thanks for the panel for putting in good stuff, and you guys, the ladies and gentlemen, the savants and the scholars of boxing are all on this show. So for all the listeners out there, give Mike his support, and support all the different platforms on here. Daniel's show on Sunday, and Gail's articles, and everybody else. And I'm waiting for Gus. I'm salivating for when your site gets up and running. I could see your pound for pound and all the interesting things you talk about. You got my Rookie of the Year last year. It's been a pleasure talking to you, boxing with you. I think you're a real good guy. But I can be found on Twitter at JRATM23 or at jabhookboxing.com. You want to talk boxing, movies, I'm there.
Last but certainly not least, Daniel Carpio of the Inscriber, for folks who want to talk boxing or the NBA, specifically the Miami Heat. Let the folks know where they can find you.
All right, folks, you can find me on Twitter, Rockets99. Get ready for like a revamp. I found out from our editor, Robert Cott, that we're revamping the Inscriber website. We got a new host. So we're going to see probably a website a lot sleeker, which is going to give us great insight to the articles. And that's like, Gus, if you can't put up on your website, man, hit me up. We'll gladly put it on there for you.
Yeah?
Yep.
All right.
Indeed. If you want to, for folks who want to talk boxing or music or anything else with me, you know what it is. Brother JR on Twitter at BrotherJR76. Again, as I stated earlier in the show, if you want to find all things about the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, please go to the blog page, P4PBoxingReport.wordpress.com is the link. Check to the right of the page. You can find links to find our pages on G+, YouTube, Facebook, Tumblr, as well as links to where to listen to the Pound for Pound Boxing Report on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Player.fm, and Google Play Music. On the next Pound for Pound Boxing Report, we will do a recap of Lara, Foreman, Badou, Jack James DeGale, Jose Pedraza, and Gervonta Davis. And we will do a preview of the much anticipated rematch between Carl Frampton and Leo Santa Cruz. Undercard of that, Dejan Zlatan in a very low-key good bout against Michael Garcia. Also, Lee Selby is fighting on that same card. Don't know we will do a show next week because again, not much boxing happening. No real boxing happening this weekend. So what I may do is return in 2 weeks, do a recap of this of the Jack, DeGale, Lara, and whatnot, and then do a preview of the bouts on the 28th. So again, episode 153, the Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Want to give a special shout out to Miss Heather Renee. If you listen to the podcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, and whatnot, I use her as the opening for a lot of my podcasts. Her birthday is today, so shout out to Heather Renee of BME Akron Podcast and whatnot. So happy born day to her. Episode 153, Pound for Pound Boxing Report. For Gail Falcathala Communities Digital News, for Now to Boxing, Gus from Corruption and Boxing, EJ Boxing Live, Scorsese, Jacob Rivera, Daniel Carpio. I'm your host, Michael. We will see you soon. Good evening to all. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Stay safe.